Hi friends, we're having a lovely day today. Today I wanted to make a quick video and talk about a few photos that I find interesting. And all of these photos are going to be dealing with the concept of working with groups of objects in photography. And this is a very advanced skill to take on as a photographer, and something that's very difficult. It takes a lot of time to do well. And it's something that, to this day, it's one of the more frustrating parts of photography, is working with groups of many things in a photo. But when it's done well, it's fantastic. And I think the goal of working with groups of photos, or what? The goal of working with groups of objects in photos is to make it not so much look, but feel the way that you are perceiving it as the person in that moment, and figuring out how to make it come across with the majestic quality that it hits your eye and your brain with, if that makes sense. And so let's talk about these photos, and I'm gonna share, you know what I mean. I'm gonna share these respective photographers below in the links in the link box, and okay, so this is one that I find very fantastical, for one, because of the light, then the backlighting situation we have going on here, fantastic expression, her head turned. It's just a well done photo. Flowers, very nice. But obviously what we're focusing on here is the hat. It's a pretty hat. It's from Nordstrom, and that's it. You know, basically just put a Nordstrom hat in all of your photography, and you will at least make it into one exhibition. So, also the balloons are interesting, and what I like about these balloons and the way that they're sort of the ballet that they play with each other in this photo is they're not overlapping. None of them are overlapping in a sort of unpleasing way. When they do overlap, so you'll see here and here, this is a good example of a couple of overlapping balloons. They overlap in a way that feels okay, and it makes sense, and it feels poetic, and you have a beautiful group of three right there. I mean, like, how do you? It's really, as I think about it, it's actually amazing the way that this was captured. A beautiful group of three of them, sort of stair stepping, and it feels nice. It feels great. So to think about those things when you're shooting is a good step in the right direction. Another thing to focus on, and we'll talk about this more as we move through these photos, is the edges of your frame. I think this is one of the more important focal points of shooting with large groups of things, is watching the edges of your frames. How close are things? Are they cutting off? What have you. You'll see over here that these two balloons are actually cutting off, but once again, they're doing it in a way that is pleasing. And it's also helpful to create a pattern of cutting off things if you're going to cut off one thing. So she's cut off over here. I'm not sure how much it helps here, but I think it might, right? So if she was maybe moved over a little bit, the balloons being cut off over here might, And another thing is, another interesting point for me is right here. She has a balloon coming out of her head, and the alternative would be, the negative alternative would be if the balloon was maybe coming out of her chin and just the bottom of the balloon was sticking out. That would be a little off-putting to me. That'd be a little, that would take away. But in this case, it's pleasing the way that it's done here. So it's okay to cut things off. This is why I call these things guidelines in photography and not rules, as much as possible, because it's okay to cut things off and chop things off, but it's important to know why and how it's happening and what it means when you do it. This is another photo that I find very interesting. One thing I love about this photo is the technique of shooting down on things. This is something that I've seen more and more in photography lately, and it's fantastic. I love it when it's done well. What you'll see here is, for one, all of these people hanging around the campfire, very vibey photo. They all have very intriguing expressions on their face overall, and expressions are extremely important when dealing with groups of things. But also you'll see that there's some cutting off going on here. We have actually decapitated the top half of this man's head here, and I mean, anything for the picture. But also there's a pattern, right? So you see that he's part of him is chopped off here. Well, a little bit of him is chopped off here. So it's repeating itself throughout the frame, which makes it work. So this is a great example of grouping in a photo done well. Of course, we had to work in Steve McCurry in this photo. He does a wonderful job at dealing with enormous groups of subjects, and this photo is I think my favorite one to talk about today, because it is a great example of a lot of this photo could be taken in a way that makes it feel very flat and odd and not pleasing, but there are a couple of things that make this photo work together in a way that actually is brilliant. And one thing I want to pay attention to first is if we chopped off the bottom half of this photo. Oh, well, so actually first, let's step back. The lighting here is fairly flat in comparison to the other ones that were going on. So there's a lot going on here. Everything's sort of at the same brightness level, which makes things more difficult. Not to say the lighting is bad, it's the characteristic of what's going on. He makes it work really well here. But so if you chop off the bottom half of this photo and you had just these boats, which is, I think, arguably the kind of photo that most people would end up taking, it would be a little bit sporadic and confusing and overwhelming, and you would need therapy by the end of the viewing of the photo. It's a very, very sad situation, actually. The fact that the bottom half of this photo is constructed the way it is, I think, is what makes the photo so fantastic. You have a very bright focal point for your eye to anchor to, and then it wanders off to these other elements, right? And I think having a very strong focal point can make photos with enormous groups of things and a lot of chaos feel cohesive and nice, and once again communicate what you're seeing when you're there. Also, the expressions, all of the expressions all around this photo are brilliant. He's got his little Captain Morgan thing going on, and what I've spoke about before that Steve does so well is he captures very human expressions. So it's not that they're extravagant or extremely poetic. They're very human. They're just people interacting, and you can feel the community that's kind of going on here. And it's beautifully done. It's fantastic. So with that said, that's it for this video. I hope that it was helpful. Please feel free to engage with me. I'll be happy to engage with you. If I can expand upon this, let me know. And you have a lovely day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.